For those who are just joining our campus community, I want to welcome you, especially the parents of the class of 2028 and any new families with transfer students. We are excited that you are joining us today, and we have a lot more in store for you throughout the summer. The Department of Parent and Family Engagement is really here as a resource to connect you to a number of different departments and the information that you need. We also put on great events, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And I am lucky to be connected to great colleagues around the university who I can always point you in their direction if I can't answer the questions. And two of those folks we're going to introduce now. They are my wonderful colleagues, Brenda Ice, who is the Senior Associate Dean and Senior Director of Residential Life, and Amanda Sargent, who is the Director of Residential Operations. So I'm going to turn it over to Brenda if you want to get us started, and then we'll reconnect for more questions at the end.
All right. Hello, everyone. If you had the ability to attend ADOC, then I attended those open sessions, and so happy to be a part of today's conversation with you again. I'm going to share screen in just a second. Amanda and I have devised a quick little slide presentation to share with you, just to do some overarching comments about what it means to live at Brown, addressing some of the questions that you sent in advance, and then answering those that are probably still stuck in your head that we think you'll probably want answered, and then certainly reserve enough time at the end for us to have some kind of Q&A in real time and address some of the other questions that were already presented to us. So I will go ahead and share our screen, and we shall go ahead and get started. So today's conversation is really around the do's, don'ts, and decisions related to living at Brown. A little bit about the context of what we'll be going through today. I'll share a little bit of framing around who we are as a department and the ways in which we are structured to organize around the residential student experience. And then, as promised, we're doing a bit of do's, don'ts, decisions, and key dates and information related to that. And so in the next 20 to 25 minutes, you'll hear my voice and then Amanda's, and then open it up for questions that you may have. So a little bit about us. Residential Life is, in fact, a entity that has been around at Brown for a number of years. I joined the Brown community September of 2021, and in doing so was tasked with reimagining the residential student experience. And so our mission has evolved, certainly based off of the student population, but more importantly, knowing what we want to do with our program in 2021 and moving forward. We are really committed to just creating a true sense of belonging. I think our students identify with being Brown students, and we want that embedded in that residential experience as well. So then when they think fondly about their time at Brown, it is inclusive of their living experience outside of the classroom. And we do that in a variety of ways through our programming efforts, the support structures we have in place, and inevitably come back to the main pillars of the work that we do, which is about creating inclusive communities that help in the growth and development of the students from first year to fourth year and then even beyond, thinking about their health and well-being more holistically and not just about the physical health, but the overall support that they will need throughout their time period. I serve as the Senior Director of our Residential Life program and have a wonderful team of directors that support me in our efforts. You're going to hear from Amanda today, who oversees our residential operations. Scott Helfrich serves as our Director of Residential Education. Terrence Sanders is responsible and Director of our Greek program and theme communities. And then Mary Jordan is our Director of New Student Programs and Community Initiatives. Here, just a quick little overview and breakdown of what those acronyms and letters mean behind when we say operations and education. So Amanda oversees our operational side, what folks would traditionally think of as housing in the world of residential life. So those are the housing assignments, building upkeep, while our division, or excuse me, our campus has its own facilities management team, independent of campus life. We internally, under Amanda's oversight, also have our own team that manages the kind of the building upkeep and serves as really a liaison between our office and that of facilities to manage work orders and the conditions of the building, which will be important as you enter in your first year to know that we have that kind of collaborative relationship in place. We love our acronyms here at Brown, and so you'll hear these kind of floated and thrown around. In Amanda's world, an AD is either an associate director or assistant director. Our FOCs are people that our students should become familiar with in their first year and beyond, and those are our facilities operation coordinators. Those are the liaisons between FM and that of Res Life. A PM is our program managers, and so they oversee certain aspects within housing and assignments or our key operations, and then OAs or office assistants. And so those are additional folks that kind of support the work that we do. In Res Ed, it is what would be considered the traditional kind of residential student experience. So really focused on programming of supporting students while they're living in residence with us. In Scott's area, his primary focus is on the first year experience and then upper division. And here is kind of like the everything else, because in a moment I'll explain Terrence's is doing specialized housing, but it really is the sophomore, junior, basically the 4-year experience that you can have while living on campus with us. Really about the programming, student engagement, sense of belonging, the support structure around crisis response, and then the training and development of our own staff to make them prepared to support our students. Again, ADs are our assistant directors. In this case, in Res Ed, you'll hear words like AC and CC. Those are our area coordinators, which are full-time practitioners who live in residence with our students. And then CC serve as our kind of peer leaders, community coordinators, or nationally speaking known as RAs around campus. Terrence Sanders and GPT is really our Greek program and theme community, the specialized. So it's not first year communities, but it is everyone else who then lives in our specialized housing structure. So he oversees our fraternity and sorority affairs, programming designed out of those councils to support those students who have come together in these kind of shared communities and interests. We have a distinction between program and theme communities. Program communities for us are students who identify across either specialized identities or special interests, and so have decided to live together in spaces that we've designated for them. And then thematic opportunities where we partner with other campus departments to create these kind of specialized communities where there is a more formal structure and partnership between our offices and that of say our Be Well for wellness or sustainability or civic engagement. And then lastly is NSPCI, which is our new student programs and community initiatives. And that is managed by Mary Jordan. This is the orientation, the kind of transition programs, particularly for our transfer students who are not new to college, just new to Brown. And so recognizing the distinction between that of new student orientation and the transition of other students. Mary also oversees the transition from our residential experience to off-campus, and so supports our off-campus student population so that they still feel integrated with Brown while living independently in the Providence area. And then she also oversees our overall communications and marketing strategies. I wanted to draw your attention just to the idea of the line around joined at Brown. You will notice that the team that I have developed are fairly new, including myself, in the work that we do. And I think that's important to draw out is that while we are new at Brown, we have been doing this for a number of years. And I think it's lovely that we're able to kind of take our shared experiences and turn that into kind of this evolution of residential life that we hope you can see today and then throughout your time with us living on campus. Enough about us, and let's start talking about you. So as I said, we are doing our presentation and kind of the do's and don'ts, and then the decisions you might need to make as you prepare for joining us later this summer and in joining the Brown community. So a couple of do's for us really center around these kind of 4 things. Certainly there are lots of other things that you should be doing, but we hope that these encapsulate things for you to start pondering and think about. The first is to get engaged. And for us, that means reading your emails. The email account that was established for you that you now have access to, that gave you your username and access to our housing portal and all those things, become our primary source of communication for our students. And so I'm speaking now to the students who are on the call, that you have an email account. It should be active and you should be finding a way to visit it regularly. Our office will send a lot of communications, but other offices will send communications as well. And so we want you to get in the habit of utilizing this primary source as information sharing. For families, what will be key for you to know is that we won't send you these email communications, but information that is generally useful for everyone living on campus to know, we make that communication available on our website. And so we will, when our presentation is done, add that link into the chat for you so that you can actually see those communications that go out and you become as informed as your student does around processes, particularly in residential life. We ask that you do pay attention, that while there are a number of communications that will come your way, most of them include deadlines. And so it's important that it's one thing to open an email, it's quite different to read and pay attention to what's being asked of you in those emails. So be mindful of those important dates that are going to pop up in those communications. If you met me in April during ADOC, I told you it's better to ask 100 questions than assume, or go to the Facebook pages and get comments from others who may have had a very different experience. Ask as many questions as you want and need to feel comfortable about coming to campus and living with us, or for families on the call today, leaving your student in our care. Attend all the webinars. Mikhail is going to give you the list of all of the available webinars that exist. Ask the questions, show up in those webinars, do the pre-questions. The more you ask, the more you become informed, and it actually helps us in enhancing our program to know that these are the questions that families and students have before they enter into campus. And then lastly, stay present. For as much as we're sharing with you and you're engaged and wanting to know about what it will mean to come to us in August, enjoy the time that you're not with us. Spend time with family, visit the family that you probably won't see for a little bit because you will be engaged in a campus and college environment. Do the things that bring you joy now, because you're going to want to remember those as you bring some of that joy and spark into the start of the semester. Turn it over now to Amanda, who won't shake her finger, but will tell you about all the don'ts.
Sure. Thank you, Brenda. So as Brenda said, we do send a lot of emails, and many of our emails have deadlines. So we don't want you to forget to pay attention to those deadlines. The student housing application is live right now, and your students should have received an email already. 2 emails. We sent a reminder this morning. It may still be filtering out about completing that. They have until the 24th to complete that. In that housing application, we ask questions about your lifestyle. You know, when do you sleep? When do you study? And basically try and get an idea of who you might do best with as a roommate. We also ask questions about gender inclusive housing. We do have a process where you can opt into living with somebody else that does not share the same birth gender as yourself. That is an opt-in. The default is that we will assign you with someone who does share the same birth gender. So we use that information to determine who you're going to live with. If you don't fill that out by the deadline, then we don't have as much information as we would like to determine where and with whom you'll live. So we don't want you to forget about the deadlines. Don't forget about information that we send to you. More importantly, if you're not getting our emails, make sure that you send us an email to let us know that. If you have not received a single email from our ResLife inbox, make sure that you send us an email letting us know that. We want to make sure that you're getting our emails. They go to your Brown email. So check your Brown email. If you haven't set that up yet, it's crucial that you do. We also don't want you to assume anything. So a lot of people will talk about their experience at Brown. that will be very different than yours. If you have parents or family that are alumni, Brenda mentioned that many of our staff are here within the past 2 years. Things are quite different than they were when your family members may have come here. So please don't assume that it's going to be the same process, or that the rooms are going to look the same, or that the furniture is the same. Ask the questions rather than assume. That goes with your roommates too. We do hear a lot of people who go immediately to Instagram or Snapchat to check out their roommate's profile. Think about the things that you're posting on Instagram and Snapchat. That's not all of you. So we want to make sure that you're not assuming about your roommate what you see on social media. We give you the information for your roommate so that you can reach out to them and ask questions and talk about living together. Talk about what each of you is bringing to the room. We really want you to not assume and talk to each other and ask us questions when you might be making assumptions. The other thing about coming to campus is what you're going to bring. We did see a lot of questions come in about what you can bring and what's provided. We give you a list of things that we recommend that you bring and things that we recommend you don't bring. Overpacking is kind of a thing. It happens. We all do it. But we ask that you don't overpack. If you know that you're going to go home for Thanksgiving break, that's when you may want to bring back the warmer weather clothing, or even winter break. It doesn't get terribly cold until you come back from winter break. So we want you to think about that. We will list the amenities that we give in the room. Every room will come with either a micro fridge, a refrigerator, and microwave, or you will have the ability to share that with your roommate. It's there already. So we don't need you to bring a second microwave, a second refrigerator. You won't need that. So you'll have a desk, you'll have a bookshelf, there will be a wardrobe or a built-in closet. So you don't need to bring that. If you're thinking about packing a U-Haul to come here, my guess is you're overpacking. So we don't want you to do that. We also don't want you to freak out. Okay, this is every first year's first experience at school. It's every transfer's first year at a new school. So everyone's navigating Brown for the first time. So there are things that you don't know, and we don't expect you to know them. We expect you to ask the questions. We want you to get the information from us rather than somebody else who was here 10 years ago that might have some outdated information. So know that everybody else has the jitters. Know that everybody else is experiencing this the same way you are, through new eyes, through someone who's never been to college before or never been to Brown before as a student. It's okay. We expect you to be nervous, and that's why we are all here to answer your questions. So please do ask them. And so we talked a lot about not missing deadlines, not missing dates that are important. We do post a lot of this on our website, so it's helpful to look at that, but these you want to jot down. The housing questionnaire, the application closes on June 24th. We send reminders, I believe at least once a week, to your Brown email. So if you forget to fill that out, we will still house you. We just won't have as much information that would give you the best experience. So it's really important that you go online and you fill that out. It does not take long at all. If you're under 18, it's important to know that there is a proxy form for your parent or guardian to also sign. The system will generate that for you. They sign it, and then your application is complete. If your parent hasn't signed that, or your family member hasn't signed that, you'll get a reminder saying, hey, it looks like you started this, but we don't have your proxy form. I say that because we do have a lot of students who are under 18, and we want to make sure that you're getting all the information you need. If you have a medical need for a housing accommodation, that paperwork is due to Student Accessibility Services the same day that the housing questionnaire is due. You fill out both. You fill out our housing questionnaire, and then you fill out the SAS information. And then our housing assignments are done after that. We take a lot of time to make sure that we are placing students where we think they will be most successful and with whom we think they'll be most successful. That takes time. So between June 24th and August 1st, we are making all of those assignments and putting you all in rooms with people whom we hope will be lifelong friends. We will email that to your Brown email by August 1st. It may come out a little bit earlier than that, but by August 1st, if you haven't heard from us, that's when you know you may have missed an email. Move-in is August 28th. Some of our students who are participating in pre-orientation programs or athletes, they may arrive a little bit earlier than that, but August 28th, mark it down. That's the date that you should plan to arrive to campus. And then we also have a webinar that you'll want to mark your calendars for. July 18th, Dr. Mary Jordan and Dean Ice will be doing a similar webinar to this with all of the information you need to know about new student orientation. And if, oh, sorry, thought this was me. Go right ahead, Brenda.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. We're rounding out to the end of our presentation so that we can actually create space for you to ask additional ones. But I wanted to finish by talking about some things to consider and think about. So we've done the do's, the don'ts, and now kind of these decision points. We've certainly provided you with a lot of information, and many of you are probably sitting thinking, what do I do with all of this? How do I process? Or maybe even had that level of questioning and anxiety leading into today's webinar. One of the things we want you to focus on is in this decision making is, who am I? Our housing questionnaire is designed to capture a bit of your lived experience so that we can best match you, but it does not wholeheartedly think about you holistically. So it's just a snapshot for us to be able to pair you appropriately. As a reminder, first years don't get to select who they live with. So these questionnaire and the responses you give allow us to match as best we can over some key information around the living experience you want to have. That said, we will create enough time and space for you to continue to evolve as a person and as a residential student with us, and be able to talk more broadly about living with this new roommate that we've assigned to you. We're not going to ask you your favorite color in the questionnaire because that's not essential to kind of the placement, but it might be important to share as you continue to kind of move through the type of music, the volume, all those sorts of things become additional. So if you don't see a question being asked in the questionnaire, don't panic. It's important. It's just not a layer that we're considering as we think about you as that whole person. You also want to think about, where am I? And this is really important to recognize that Brown is in Providence, Rhode Island. And so we want you to understand, yes, coming to college is going to be important, and families will tell you to focus on academics and have some level of kind of integration between the curricular and co-curricular. But we want you to think beyond the main green and beyond our gates. And so explore and know that part of your experience will be embracing what it means to be around a city environment like Providence, and the location and proximity to other major cities, so that you can actually have a more diverse experience and not just centered and insular to just of the Brown campus. Decisions about how will I do this? How will I do that? Rome wasn't built in a day. I know we've all heard that quote, and it may feel cliche, but it's true, and ever more true as you start your experience. You are not expected to know everything. And if you somehow think you do coming into campus, maybe that will be part of the how will I as we peel back some of that. We will have support structures in place before you get here, while you're here, and even after you're here. So it's not designed for you to have all answers at any given point in time. Let that evolve over time. And then the last one in the terms of decisions is, why did I choose Brown? Why am I going to college? What am I going to do here? Brown, we are designing, and the way in which we're doing it, particularly in our residential life experience, is that we are creating a home away from home, not a replacement of, not in lieu of. We do not serve as in local parentis. So we are not designing, nor do we want or desire to be your family, but we do want to create this kind of family and welcoming environment for you. So you chose Brown for a reason. You felt that welcoming environment, and we want that to carry through in the residential experience as well. So embrace that coming in, and kind of think about these decisions over the summer before you come join us in late August. Lastly, we'll end with contact information. Again, I stress to families during ADOC is that our students are going to have a lot of questions and they're likely going to reach out to peers and our general Res Life account. But Amanda and I want you to know that we stand ready to support your questions. And so ask as many as you need to feel comfortable about the residential experience. Our information is listed here, and we'll also include it in the chat as well for you to have access to us. And then we've also provided our contact information, phone numbers. We still use phones, and so feel free to call us, and we'd be happy to answer questions. We have wonderful staff prepared and ready. And any of you that have already started to call, Paige is our administrative assistant, is absolutely wonderful and willing to sit and chat with people for as long as they need to feel good about their experience of joining us at Brown. That, my friend, concludes our presentation portion of today's conversation. And certainly at this point, we'll turn it back over to Mikkel, where we will answer some of the questions already sent in, and then those that are popping up in the Q&A right now.
Great. Thank you, Dean Ice. Thank you, Amanda. We've got a lot of great questions. So let me just quickly start off with those. One of them that came in was about someone who's an international family, and they're asking about shipping to their to the campus ahead of their arrival on campus. I'd say, Amanda, could you tell parents how they ship things in advance?
Yes, students can, I believe the address is actually listed on the mailroom website. And so you can address it to your student, and that will go directly to the mailroom. The student would then go to the mailroom when they get here, pick it up, and they can bring it to their room. I can look for that address, but I'm pretty sure it's listed right on the mailroom website.
The other part of that I will add is that it's not a send your package today. That the mail services does ask that you try to reserve and send your package no more than a week before, maybe a little bit in advance of that, before your intended arrival. If you can imagine, if every student were to start sending it now, it would sit in a mailroom for almost 2 months before they would need to be distributed. And so they actually don't have a lot of staffing scheduled until the early start of the semester in August and September to be able to manage that packaging. One of the things that you'll get in your housing portal as part of our assignment process is a reminder of what that mailing address, your mailbox assigned to you. And then that's the only other indicator that you would add to that mailing address to be able to get that shipping. Mail goes to the mail services, not to the building that they're assigned.
Great, thank you, Brenda. I'm going to take a second just to quickly answer a lot of folks who are asking about this webinar being recorded and others in the future being recorded. And yes, we record all of our parent and family webinars, and we post them on the same site where you are registering. It usually takes us a day or two to get them edited and posted, but they'll be up all summer. So you can join as needed, and our slides will be included in those recordings. Brenda, we had a question about, a couple of questions about community and finding community within the residence halls and what kind of resources are there. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. And so while all of us in Res Life are trained and capable of doing that kind of building the support and structure, that primarily falls in our Res Ed unit. And so that's where I talked about Scott Helfridge managing kind of the first year experience, which would be primarily for many of you on the call. And then even our transfer students are integrated in that same area that his team oversees in our upper division unit. We have professional staff, our area coordinators or master's level professionals who have degrees and understanding of student development. And so they are then supervising the student peer mentors, our community coordinators, on what it means to build community, to be engaged, and to design programs that actually get you connected. And so what you will find is that you will be welcomed by community coordinators wanting to get to know the students assigned to their particular building. And from those levels of engagement, programs will start to pop up. And I want to just stress that our team is quite capable of doing the traditional bubblegum and ice cream programming to kind of get people in spaces, but they do far more than that. And so they actively listen to the needs of the students and design programs that are more intentional in design and that will actually draw people out into the space. We can always offer free food and hope that that would be a draw and give away swag. But isn't it more meaningful when we can sit and say, we heard you, we attended to this was a need that you had, and we've actually designed a program that gets you engaged, connected to other people on the floor, other people across the community, or even around the Brown campus. And so that's the types of ways that we will integrate and create that type of welcome and sense of belonging here at Brown.
Thank you, Dean Ice. I'll pivot to you, Amanda, and a few more operational questions. We've had a few that have come in about transportation in and around Brown and the city of Providence and further up into Boston. Can you talk a little bit about transportation options from the residence halls?
Sure. So within the transportation office, they do provide shuttles around campus, and you can take like public transportation throughout Providence. We are pretty close to a lot, like the main train station is within walking distance. It's a little bit further down the hill, but you can walk there. And so I'm trying to think if there's any other transportation we might want to note.
Well, I'll add that the Brown ID card does allow free transportation on the RIPTA bus service.
Right.
And we also we've had a lot of questions about what can you bring to the dorm, what can't you bring? Where do you recommend parents and families and students get that information from?
So we will send that with our assignment email, but it's also found on our website. If you actually search what to bring in our website, it should pop right up. I can look for the link and stick it in the chat too if needed.
Okay, well, you're looking at that. Dean Ice, we've had a couple of questions about what the dorm experience, what the setup is for first year students. What can they expect? Is there a standard that each first year is going to see? Can you talk a little bit about how things are configured for first years?
Sure. So as a first-time first-year student living in our residence halls, the expectation should be that you're going to have a roommate. So you'll either be assigned to a double or triple. And so you could have up to 2 roommates. One of the things that we can and confidently say is that if we have designed or indicated that a space will accommodate 2 people or 3 people, we have physically went through that space and can assure you that the space will actually hold and support that number of students in that particular space. Oftentimes, and even nationally speaking, you hear this idea of forced spaces or conversion of lounges to make bedrooms to fit the needs of students. That's not the operation here at Brown. We've worked really intentionally in the last 3 years since I've been here to make this space accessible to the students. And so that's why we're committed to walking these spaces, identifying spaces, and adjusting, even as simple as adjusting the style of furniture we put into place to ensure that we maximize space and availability for our students. That said, Amanda did a quick overview of the amenities that are in the space, but you'll get a bed, dresser, mattress, desk chair, a wardrobe or bureau if there isn't an embedded closet to accommodate the number of students in the room. In some cases, bookcases are either embedded in the walls of the space or provided as kind of a desk topper. And then most, if not all, of the furniture is then designed to be lofted such that if you put it at its highest level, then much of those same furniture pieces can be pushed under to create more surface space. Here is where it's important to recognize that mention of the don't of overpacking. When we say 3 people fit comfortably, it's based off what we have provided and then reasonable personal belongings being brought in. But if everyone brings their entire room from home into a 3-person space, now it becomes a bit crowded and slightly uncomfortable. So this is that moment of talking to the person you've been assigned to live with to say, what are you bringing? What are you not bringing, such that we can make this space livable and comfortable for all of us.
Thank you, D-Nice. Can I give you a couple of quick ones?
Sure. Rapid
All
fire,
right.
let's go.
Okay, this is the speed round. Are dorms carpeted or should students bring rugs?
So we have worked to, in our renovations, is that it is sporadic, but we're working to a model where there will be LVT or kind of flooring where you're encouraged to bring a rug. Even in instances where it may be carpeted, we still advise you to bring a rug just to kind of personalize and kind of create the space your own. Most of our first year buildings have this kind of LVT or kind of flooring that isn't carpeted. Where we do see carpeting is typically in hallways. But in most rooms, you're not going to have the carpet. And so, yes, an area rug would be nice.
Thank you. Are beds lofted? Can they be lofted?
They can be lofted. And the furniture that we've chosen will allow you to do it without a whole lot of tools. Might take a little force, so you just get under and pop your hand, and most of those devices should unlock. But as you are moving in, we will actually have staff roaming the halls that might be able, with a little soft mallet, be able to help and assist if you can't do it yourself, or over the course of the semester, if you're trying to redesign your room, looks good today, but third day in, you want to make some adjustments. We can either give you the instructions or send someone over to assist with that.
Great. How about for students who might be very tall? Are there extra long twin beds available?
Yes, in the housing questionnaire, there is a section for a small bit of open-ended, and if that becomes something that we need to consider, while not necessarily written as an accommodation through SAS, you can indicate in the housing questionnaire if possible, or even after you've gotten your assignment, to just give us a quick little email to say, I'm that one that was mentioned in the webinar about being just a little bit taller. Not my problem, being just under 5 feet here. But for those that aren't, we certainly do have that available and could easily make that switch before you arrive.
Great. And what are the laundry facilities?
So we have committed to complimentary laundry service for students for the foreseeable future. And so what that means is that there should never be an argument that they can't do laundry because of a cost. There's no cost associated with a student taking advantage of our laundry machines, both washers and dryers. In most of our residential spaces, particularly for first years, the laundry units are located in the basement level of the building. But we do create laundry room or rooms in each of those residential spaces. Particularly in Andrews, which is one of our larger first year areas, there is at least 2, maybe even 3 laundry facilities available to students. And so they have access to that in the room, or excuse me, in the building that they're assigned. And that is throughout their 4 years, or as long as they are residentially assigned on campus with us, that they have access to complimentary laundry services.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to give you a break and we'll move to Amanda. A few questions about the housing questionnaire. Can you tell folks, do students all receive their assignments on the exact same day?
Yes, we send out everything at once because there's nothing worse than hearing from students, I got my assignment, but my friend didn't, or, vice versa. We send everything out at once.
Great. And then another question was saying that they heard from their student that the questionnaire included things like sleep time, wake time, smoking, but there wasn't anything about music or noise. Can you talk about what the questionnaire covers, what it doesn't cover, and how you match up folks?
Sure, it does cover, I think there were 4 items: sleep time, study time, wake time. It doesn't cover how do you like, what kind of music do you like, or how noisy are you? We really recommend that you have those conversations over the phone or on FaceTime in person, just because there's a lot of stuff changes. And so we really want you to talk to your roommate before you get here. So we use basic information to assign you. And then once you're assigned, those are the conversations we want you to have. If someone else asked about, if I have to get up at the crack of dawn for athletics, can we talk about, I don't want my roommate to be out partying late night. That's a conversation that's really good to have prior to moving in together. to kind of have some expectations on how are we going to conduct ourselves when we're living together, and what's acceptable and what's not.
And Amanda, I know this is a question that's come up in the past. What happens if there are personality differences once a student is settled into their room and their space? How does Residence Life support those relationships?
Yeah, so Brenda talked a lot about the residential education side and the community coordinators building some community in the residence halls. Part of that is training our community coordinators on how to handle some difficult conversations and how to deal with some conflict between people. And so that's really one of the reasons why our community coordinators are in the building with your students. They will have those conversations. They will help your student talk about that with their roommate. And then, they can bring it to their area coordinator, who is a professional master's level staff in the building. They can have those conversations. And we get it. Sometimes there are just two people who really are not meant to live together. And we will work with the students to try and find a new assignment if that happens. It's not typical. It's not the way things typically happen. But if it gets to that point, we're not going to force somebody to live in a situation where they're just not being successful or not having a good time.
Right, thank you. Dean Ice, some clarification on the extra long beds. I think maybe how I phrased it made it seem like everybody has to request an extra long bed, but correct me if I'm wrong, all the beds are tall, right?
Yes, all beds and mattresses are extra long twin. If you are then extra long, we do have a few of those specialty beds in on campus and available, but traditionally the size would allow for most if our campus community to sleep comfortably on the bed.
Okay, and another bit of clarification, does the complimentary laundry service include laundry detergent? And also, I think we need to clarify, does that mean somebody's going to do your laundry for you?
Okay, so yes, thank you for that clarification. No one is doing your laundry for you. And complimentary is use of the machines. So the washer and dryer are available for use without payment, but we do not supply the laundry detergent, dryer sheets, and all of that to complete the laundry. That is a purchase you make, but we at least make the machines available without cost to students. We do not, as a program, offer laundry service where someone does it for you, but there are a few local vendors in the community that do offer local laundry service that if you desire can sign up for.
Great. Another question about substance-free dorms. Does that mean just a floor is substance-free, or is it the entire building?
It really depends on how many students actually apply to live in substance free. That's when we decide who will live there, where they will live, and how many beds we really need for that. So sometimes it can be an entire building. If we don't have enough students apply to live in an entire building, then we'll make 2 floors to be substance free.
Right. And Amanda, are there penalties if a student loses their key to their room?
After so many lockouts, yes, they will incur a charge. However, if it's like a one-time thing, they lost their key, they can go to the key office or, lock themselves out. They can go to the key office. We'll let them in. They can get their key. If they lose their key, however, and they cannot find it, we do charge them for a lock change, and we change the lock so that there's no security concern.
Right. And then we have a question from a sophomore transfer student. How does move-in and orientation look for that for transfer students?
Sure. So I'll start. The first part is around orientation, is that it runs at the same time as our new students. So first time, first year, and transfers arrive on the same day, move in on the same day, and then their orientation experience coincides. Our partners and Mary Jordan, who's going to do the webinar a little later, works very closely with the office that manages transfer orientation. And so there is intentional overlap in the types of programs that transfer students would attend that would be important for anyone to know. And then there are elements that the transfer orientation team develops specifically, if you will, a track for transfer students. So it's all happening at the same time. And so nothing really changes in terms of dates and deadlines. It's just the content and the time that you would spend. We've already started those weekly communications around orientation. And so the transfer students in particular should start to see that communication coming from them, thinking about those types of schedules and opportunities to engage differently than with the first year students.
On a similar note, Brenda, what about international students and their orientation and their move-in process?
Yes, so theirs, again, is going to be what we consider a pre-orientation. So we have partnered with our Global Center, Office of Global Student Engagement and their center. And so they do a program each year. They will arrive a few days prior to the 28th. That communication, again, won't go out right away, though if you were to visit their website, you could see some kind of preset dates. Typically, we launch all applications and information around pre-orientations at the same time. And so we just started our communication last week, welcoming new students and transfer students to campus. By the end of this month, you will start to see in those weekly communications information around international pre-orientation, as well as some of the other pre-orientation programs. The date I do believe that they've already committed to is August 23rd, being the arrival date for international students to join campus, and then the program would begin either late that evening or the very next day on August 24th.
Right. And I want to add that we're going to do a special session for international parents and families with the folks that run the Global Brown Center. That'll be later this summer, so please register for that. There's also a few questions in here about dining, and that again is Tuesday next week that we will do another session, another webinar for parents on dining. We had a couple of clarifying questions around substance free and what that means. Is that just alcohol? Is that, how do you define substance free? I know, Dean Ice, do you want to start with that? Or should I pass that off? Amanda, why don't
We're
you
gonna let
lead
Amanda
that?
start with that because I think
Okay.
the definition is actually in the application.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we actually do define it when your student is applying in the application. And basically, if your student opts to live in substance free, they are saying that they will not partake in any substance while living on Brown's campus. So, that means that their roommate does not need to worry about them going out and partying and coming back to campus. It's not just in the hall. It's saying that they are living a substance free life, alcohol, drugs, what have you. And so that's important to know, that if you're opting into that, you are making a commitment, and your roommate and the people in that community understand that you are all making the same commitment. So I should say that we do adhere to local government laws, and that under 21-year-olds should not be drinking, and substances are not prohibited on campus for anyone under 21. But this is saying that you are not partaking in that. We understand that college life can be college life. These students opting into this community are saying, I am not someone who uses any substance at all.
Right. And then Amanda, when do returning students move into their dorms? For the folks on here who aren't first year, but there are returning students. Oh, I think you might be muted. Amanda, I think you're muted if you want to repeat that.
Sorry, we've only been doing Zoom for 4 years. You would think I could find the mute button. It's the Sunday after first year moving. I believe that's the 31st.
And that's listed on your Residence Life webpage too.
Okay, it's there. It's a few days after. It's on the weekend.
You got the folks on this webinar are great with questions. Let's see. We've talked about substance free. What else do we have? Can we talk a little bit more about the orientation schedule? As we've mentioned a number of times, Dr. Jordan's going to be hosting a webinar with Dean Ice later this summer. As far as email information, I think students should be receiving a weekly Wednesday update from the folks that put that together. Is there anything else that I'm missing, Dean Ice, about
No,
orientation?
I think what I will add is that we are intentionally making distinction between housing move-in and that of orientation, is that August 28th is the day we want you to come and just simply move in and get settled. And so it's not meant to be the start of orientation, because we want you to actually have the experience of moving in, unpacking, settling in, getting to know one another. And then orientation officially begins when we start the next day, with a kind of a formal welcome by campus leadership, and a real chance to get to know the Bruno leaders, who are orientation leaders, that are assigned to our first year students and even our transfer students. But that would be the only other thing. We intentionally don't provide a whole lot of context around the schedule of orientation, because we don't want people to start thinking and guessing about what that means or how we're going to spend our time. We've been very thoughtful, based off of previous feedback over the years, and then thinking more about the benchmarking, naturally speaking, about how we onboard our students. There is a lot of information to know, but we are intentional about making sure giving it to you in a progressive, intentional manner. We do not expect you to be experts by the 4th day and be ready to jump right into classes, knowing everything you need to know about being a Brown student. And so know that our orientation experience may start with the first 5 days leading up to the semester, but it is truly intended to be a year-long experience. And so that's something that may not necessarily be captured in an email or in a schedule that you're going to see. We will use the year, and which is why it's important for us to talk about it as a transition program and not necessarily a hard 5-day orientation experience.
Thank you. We are getting close to time. So I'm going to let both of you give your final words of wisdom to the parents and families here before we wrap up. I'll start with you, Amanda. What's your top tip for the folks joining us today?
Oh, read every email. Read every word of every email, because those that don't miss some good information, and then they either feel left out, like they missed something, which they did, or they miss a deadline that could potentially put them behind the 8 ball.
Right. And I want to reinforce that for parents and families, most of the communication is going to be coming to your student. So if you haven't seen anything, check the community messages on the Res Life webpage, or talk to your student while they're still at home and just, check in with them if they've been reading their emails. That will help us out quite a bit. And Dean Ice, your final words of wisdom?
Yes, mine is directed towards the parents and families on the call. That this is as much your experience as it is your students. And so we need, it's my goal to make this a smooth transition process for you. We will talk a whole lot about directing and working primarily with the student and communicating with the student. But in this process, leading up to them becoming the student that will manage all of that communication, lean into us, ask us the questions, feel good about the experience. I don't want any family member to feel like their concerns are being not being considered as part of this process. So it's yours. And whether this is your first student and in college or your 5th, it's still an opportunity for you to embrace what it means to be joining our Brown community. We want you to celebrate alongside them and be a part of their journey. You can't be in the classroom, but we want to tell you about what that means for them to be in the classroom. You can't live with them, but we can and want to share with you what it means to have that lived experience through residential life. So ask, be a part of the journey with them, alongside them, and we're here to provide that information as well.